Migrant gangs are overrunning New York City and its shelters? Shocking.
Reloading! Reloading! Reloading!
How's everybody doing? This is JDL with Info Warnings, and boy, today we got a story for you. It's not really breaking news, but it's big news nonetheless because of all of the problems that's going on right here in the United States of America. The immigration influx is taking over America and is overrunning the cities and is putting a burden on all of the resources in all of these cities. We've been talking about what's going on in Springfield, and we're going to continue to talk about what's going on in Springfield and all over the United States. But today we're going to talk about what's going on in the Big Apple, New York City, where the gangs are overrunning the Big Apple and they're causing havoc. Yes, as you can see right there on the headline today, how New York City sanctuary status allows bloodthirsty migrant gang Tren Aragua to thrive in Big Apple's shelters. Wow, it shouldn't be a shock. Shouldn't be a surprise. It shouldn't come as a shock because we've let over 15 million immigrants illegally into the states, and they're thriving all over the United States. You've heard about what's going on with Chicago. As a matter of fact, the gang members in Chicago have said that they're not going to let Tren Aragua come in there, and they have something up for them. You heard what's going on in Aragua, Colorado, where they're taking over apartment buildings. Houston, Chicago, California, where they took over a bus down there. And now right here in New York City, as the New York Post is reporting today, September 24th, 2024. Wow. So let's get into this story while we have that opportunity. How New York City sanctuary status allowed bloodthirsty migrant gang Tren Aragua to thrive in big city shelters. We have this video right here. I'm going to let that play so you can read the scrolls as it goes through there. And it's quite interesting with what's actually taking place there. Look at those scrolls there as the headline pops up. But the Big Apple's migrant-friendly sanctuary city status, has allowed the vicious Venezuela gang Tren Aragua to flourish in local migrant shelters, hamstringing cops and keeping immigration agents in the dark. Law enforcement sources tell the Post. And look at those flashing lights to let you know how serious it is. But they're not only taking over the shelters, but as you can see, it looks like they're taking over the city as well with the rampant crime that's going on in there. But what's really so much more interesting about this story is not so much just the shelters that they've taken over, but how they're just foregoing and forsaking ICE, how they're just forsaking the federal agents and what New York City is doing and what their laws have done and causing this havoc. And that's what we need to get into in this article. So let's go a little further into this article. Again, the Big Apple's migrant-friendly sanctuary city status has allowed the vicious Venezuelan gang Tren Aragua to flourish in local migrant shelters, hamstringing cops and keeping immigration agents in the dark. Law enforcement sources tell the Post. The gang has infiltrated the shelter system to build a criminal enterprise that peddles drugs, guns, and women in the 5 boroughs. But the restrictive policy largely bars the New York Police Department from policing the facilities and prohibits the city from tipping off federal immigration agents about dangerous illegal immigrants, the sources said. Wait a minute. So you're not going to let you're not going to let the federal agents do their job. You're just going to forsake them. I'm not making this up. Let's continue this article because it shows it down there. It was an unintended consequence of this administration's policy, a source with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, better known as ICE, in New York told the Post. However, the New York City Council and the mayor's office exacerbated the issue with policies that ignore federal law. They're just going to ignore federal law. And this is part of why the problem is starting to fester in New York and in other cities across because of this so-called sanctuary city status where we're just going to ignore federal law and not allow the federal agents to do their job. And what's the result? This havoc that we're seeing right now all over the country, with over 15 million illegal immigrants coming into this country. Thus far, some would say upward to 20 million. Wow. And they wonder why there's so many people that's right now scared, why there's so many people right now frustrated, because the resources that's rightfully should go to the United States citizens are going to these illegal immigrants coming into the city. No, I'm not going to mince my words. I'm not going to say undocumented migrants. No, they're coming into the country illegally by the bus loads, by the plane loads. Let's continue this article. The NYPD is limited in what it can do to go after migrant gangbangers in city shelters, thanks to the Big Apple's sanctuary status when it comes to immigration. They claim they are protecting the communities from ICE. Wow, they're protecting the communities from ICE. All the while releasing these dangerous criminals back into the communities they preyed upon. Cities and states that proclaim immigration sanctuary status, which include California, Colorado, Illinois, Massachusetts, and New York, vow not to cooperate with federal immigration officials. That by itself speaks volumes. They vow not to work with the federal immigration officials. They're just going to do their own thing. And as a result, the citizens of the United States, the citizens of that state, the citizens of that city are suffering because of these liberal policies that's infecting their cities and affecting all of us here in America. Wow, let's continue. That means local authorities will not hold wanted illegal immigrants for ICE, and they won't tip off the feds if they have a migrant fugitive in their custody for a local crime. Migrants who are convicted locally are typically released after serving their time in jail and are not held for ICE agents to nab them and begin deportation proceedings under sanctuary policies. In New York City, the policy was adopted decades ago, then codified under former Mayor Bill de Blasio, and it remains in effect until the auspices of the City Council. What do we have going on here, people? Can someone tell me? Can someone let me know what we have going on here? We have complete chaos going on in New York City. We have a bunch of illegals just taking over the city, doing what they want with all disregard for the law, and the local officials, the city and the state, allowing them to, forsaking federal law. What the federales need to do is they need to just cut off all funding to those states, because, you know, the states, they look forward to that federal funding. Cut it off. Cut the money off, and let's see how quick things change. But we have some more in this article, so let's continue on in this article. Here you have one of the gang members there. He's just brazenly flashing, middle fingers up, jeweled out. Looks like he's in some local store. And he's just flashing out, like, with all disregard and with all non-care for the citizens of the United States. Let's continue. For the NYPD, it means city, health and hospitals and homeless services officials have strict limits on police access to migrant shelter and health services in the 5 boroughs. The sanctuary city status eliminates the fear of expulsion, NYPD Chief of Patrol John Shell said. Wait a minute. So these people, they have no fear of being expelled from out of here. And they're just going to do whatever they want because they know, hey, they're not going to do nothing. They're just going to they're just going to allow us to stay here without any repercussions. And we're going to do whatever we want to do. And what do you see being done? Everything they want to do illegally. Let's continue. If you're a migrant member of TDA or any criminal group and you know the existing laws or existing sentiment on prosecution, and you know you're not being kicked out of the country, for them, it's worth the risk, the chief told the Post. That right there you see on your screen, that's the shelter right there where a whole bunch of illegal activity is going on in there. Cops are barred from patrolling the shelters housing asylum seekers unless it's due to a 911 call, a health emergency, or if they have a warrant or subpoena after a cumbersome process, sources said. Even then, the department is hampered. A police raid at the Randall's Island migrant shelter last month, which stemmed from reports that Tren Aragua was stashing guns and cars at the site, fizzled after the gangbangers were tipped off and stashed the cash. Investigators suspect that private security guards at the facility may have tipped off the migrants, sources said. So, of course, the security guards are in the pockets of the gang members. Of course, the security guards are in the pockets of Tren Aragua. Of course, the security guards are in the pockets of these illegal immigrants that is nothing more than a criminal enterprise in our state. But let's continue. The biggest challenge is the infrastructure of sharing information isn't there. One frustrated law enforcement source told the Post on Monday. That makes Randall's Island ideal because it's big, it's hidden, and you can exploit that. You see there on your screen some signs that you know that they're Tren Aragua that you're dealing with. The illegal immigrant gang that's taken over New York City and its shelters and causing havoc in all of its territory. Wow. This is just too much for me to even consider. What do you think about this? Should this be allowed to go on? Should this be allowed to continue? Should sanctuary cities even exist in the United States? Let me know. I'm curious what you think. Let me have your comments below. And let's discuss this. Let's get a narrative going on. Let's see if we can get some things changed around here, because this just makes no sense. Because if it's happening in those bigger cities right now, and it's quietly happening in these smaller cities like Springfield, Ohio, and down there in Alabama, then you know it's going to be happening to a city near you. Please like and subscribe. Please share this video. Please comment below. And please remember that you've been warned.